Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Beyond Borders, a space for honest conversations where people, technology, art and mental health meet. We're here to explore what's changing, what matters and what it means to stay human in the middle of it all. Welcome back to Beyond Borders. I'm Carolyn Hammond, and as always, I'm joined by the amazing Pim, founder of Digitize, and the insightful Sprenko, writer and founder of the Real Talk Hub. Today, we get to do something we've been wanting to do for a while, pull back the curtain on how this podcast actually came to life. We'll share the spark that started it all, what it really took to get it off the ground, and the lessons we've learned along the way. So if you've ever thought maybe I could start a podcast, this episode is for you. So, Pim, Sprenko, every podcast, I think, begins with a what if, and often that spark, that what if, comes long before the time is right. So we're going to start off by talking about how Beyond Borders came to be, not just as a concept, but the people behind it. That's us. And for me, the timing had always been tricky with podcasting. But when Pim came with this vision, it felt different, like something worth making space for. I didn't feel fully ready, I will admit that, but I trusted the team that we were putting together, and that made saying yes possible for me. So, Pim, I'm going to kick off with you and say you were the one who first had the idea for Beyond Borders. What was it that made you want to start a podcast, and why this one?
Uh, the fun of it. I think I have been in your spaces and with Franco quite a while before I had the idea to start a podcast. I always found it very fun and the open discussion that it brings on all these topics. I actually enjoy talking about, so that was definitely a big part of it. And also seeing what the space currently has and what it doesn't have. I think there are not a lot of podcasts out there that are talking in the way we talk about the Web3 space and the benefits and the disadvantages and everything that comes with it. So I was just thinking, okay, it might be beneficial for others that we give an open talk about what we experience. Not only the success stories, but also the negative sides. And I think with your knowledge of the space in our spoken with you before, if you besides that you have a great voice, that you are really interested in all the topics. And with Franco, who has a lot of knowledge about mental health, it was a great topic. Also because mental health nowadays is more important and more in the foreground than it was in the past. And also with my history with my health, I think it was a great combination of the three of us having like a circulation of topics where everything always gets spoken about, to say like, why not start a podcast? And that's why I invited the both of you to my little idea.
I think that's brilliant. What you've shared is super important as a nugget to start a podcast. We had knowledge of each other, didn't we, in X Spaces. And for anybody who doesn't know, X Spaces are kind of live broadcasts within X, and we were all part of that and still are, generally. And so we had knowledge of each other. We were in communities together. We kind of knew each other. And so I guess when you had the seed for that, I'm inclined to use the word easy, but it's not easy, is it? But it was more focused because you'd had experience of me, you'd had experience of Sprenko. We, spoke well together, and so we weren't cold in it. And I think that's important when you're thinking of doing a project like this with somebody. Knowledge is important, I think. Would you agree with that, Pim?
Yeah, definitely. It's the knowledge eventually, I knew it was there with all three of us. We all three were also always ready to help others, and you and Spranko were always there within your communities. Okay, you could do this, watch out for this. So I think people are really were there to say, okay, everyone in our case is happy to help and actually is very open to talk about everything. So that's like, okay. That's really why I thought, okay, that's a very good basic for making, let's say, a new channel where it might be for everyone to see we are here to help, we are here to tell our stories. Also, very curious,
Yeah.
what did you first think when I asked you, do you want to start a podcast?
Good question. I think, if I'm honest, the desire had always been there, but the timing was never right. Life, work, other projects, they just took up space in my life that I could never, ever prize open a space for a podcast. And I'm not sure I'd ever really gone into it. I didn't really know what I needed to do. And so it felt too big for me at that time. And when you came along, it felt different. You weren't just pitching, let's do a podcast. You were presenting a vision that already had shape. You were focusing on Sprenko and myself. And we weren't. I think the exciting thing and the enticing thing for me is we didn't start this chasing an audience or producing a podcast for the sake of it, just like we do in Web3 and in our spaces. It was about creating space for real conversations, as you've just described, that matter with people that we respect. And I think that made me say yes. So I hope that makes sense. And I want to throw that to Sprenko. What made you say yes when Pim asked? Was podcasting something you'd thought about before?
Yes, I've had a few friends around mention, you could start a podcast with a real talk, but for me, it's something I've always thought I didn't have the time for. Like you said, when Pim came along, obviously we are in communities together. We've spoken on spaces before, but I think it was just that meaningful connection. Like I always say, for me, it's about a connection being meaningful. And I think, Pim coming forward and saying, I want to do this, the idea of a shared purpose also stood out for me. When you can tell that, the vision coming from Pim and the people that you're gonna be working with, they're doing the podcast together, like, shared vision comes there and shared purpose, and like, okay, you know what? I think I can make time for this. And I just trusted the process, and here we are. It's been a wild ride. Season one has been, grateful, and here we are, on season two as well. So I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, me too. And I think what's important that's come out of this section of this discussion today is that even if you don't feel ready, we didn't feel ready, I don't think. You and I, Sprenko, the impetus was coming from Pim and he
Mhm.
had a vision, but you and I, something we'd knocked around in our heads, but had thought, oh no, I haven't got time. But
Exactly.
we made time, didn't we?
Hmm.
And I think that's amazing and I love it. And here we are in season two, and I'm still excited about what we're doing, what we're talking about, where we're going with this. I absolutely adore working with both of you. So I just wanted to share that as well. Okay, so we've covered that then. So what we're saying there is, even if you're not ready, just do it. Get on with it. It's not always perfect. Life isn't perfect. Find a
Right.
way. I think that's what's coming from that section. So what about, once the idea was there, things can fall apart in life, can't they? When you're trying to build something, unless there's clarity, shared purpose, structure. There's three of us, and anybody listening could think, well, how do you please three people? So let's explore now how we as a team aligned on vision, branding, topics. I will share, it mattered to me, and I think both of you know, and I know it mattered to you as well, that Beyond Borders had a clear voice and feel from day one. And I think that clarity helps listeners to feel like they're stepping into something intentional, not experimental. So, Sprenko, back to you. What do you
Mhm.
remember about those early conversations? How did we land on the name and the vibe we wanted to create?
Uh, Most importantly, I would say we have always been respectful of each other's opinions. So when we're in a position to pick the name, what topics we want to work in. There's been no form of imposition. Pim is not coming forward to say, I came with the ideas, my vision, we're gonna do it this way, strictly that way. There's no, military procedures or MOs. We're respectful of each other's opinion, and we work more like a team than always Pim's idea. So it's been very helpful to come, and I think together, the shared purpose, one idea, one vision has developed into something that we three can work towards collectively. We know the end goal, impact life beyond every single border. And that's why it's been, for lack of a better choice of word, easy to work as a team collectively, put in our individual strengths so that collectively can be amplified and really hit our listeners. And I'm glad that's what's been happening so far.
I love that, Spenko, and I've written down impacts life beyond every border, and that just sums up what we've done, what we've
Mhm.
set out, I think, and where we've come from. So, Pim, to you then, the same kind of thing. Anyone that listens in knows that we kind of share the lead. So I'm leading on this topic, you led on the last one, Sprinko will lead on the next one. How did that happen? How does it feel? How does that work? So, if somebody's behind the scenes thinking, well, I want to start a podcast, there's three of us or four of us, how do we decide who leads? Because one of the things I think that we have that Sprenko just touched on is this synergy between us. We trust each other. We, I think, operate at a similar level. And so we just get on with it and it works. There's no angst, at least I hope there isn't, but there isn't from my side. There isn't any angst. We don't, there isn't any behind the scenes, oh, I should have done that, or none of that. It just works. So Pim, how do we help people bottle that for themselves and use it in their, emerging podcasts?
Well, I think the first meeting between the three of us after the idea was a little bit more set, like, okay, we're gonna start. How gonna we start? We had a couple of meetings. I think the most important thing is that we knew each other, and we also after the meetings knew from each other that every opinion is safe. It's safe to talk. It's safe to come up with a topic that maybe others are not really familiar with or are not really talk about it like on a usual basis. I think that was a really good way of actually creating a sort of a safe space for all the three of us, where we can talk freely, suggesting freely, and that also enables that we actually listen to each idea that comes up. Besides that, having the idea, okay, why not start a podcast? I think all the other ideas on how to do it, we discussed with the three of us. There was not really a plan from the beginning, at least not really from my side. Uh, and we made it with the three of us. And I think if that is achieved, then all the other things get a little bit easier. Same for how to kick off every episode. We decided to do it with via rotation, but I remember that me and Franco in the beginning said, well, Caroline, you have the best and most clear voice of the three of us, and also the most pleasant one. It is an option that you do the starts, and then eventually we decided that you do the intros, and then the rotation stayed the same. And I always find it funny, thinking back to it, that you said, "Well, I'm not completely sure about my voice," and then me and Spranko immediately interrupt you, like, "You have the best voice out of the three of us, and you're the native English speaker. So if you could do the intro, that would be that would be great for us." And those things actually, they seem small, but they actually are amusing in making your own story, which makes every podcast episode slowly more fun and also more durable for everyone. So I think when let's say you want to start a podcast, make sure everyone can speak their mind and have some fun in creating and discussing. No idea is too small or too big, I would say. And then, of course, you need to make some arrangements with the three of you, with each other, like who does what. Um, and then does that work? And then always feel free to ask for help and etc. But I think that's the basis. Create a safe space for everyone who is in the podcast, and then slowly make a plan together.
Thank you for that, Pim. And even Sprenko have done amazing for my confidence through this podcast because I don't hear what you hear, and but that's just each of us, isn't it? We're like that. But it has, and that's something else to share, isn't it? Once you get over your own fears and your own insecurities and you push yourself into spaces that you want to go but you hold yourself back, there can be enormous growth opportunities when you do that, and there certainly has for me with this, and accepting my voice and that. So thank you for that and for those comments. What I also would say is that when I was listening to you and also to Sprenko, I wrote down the word respect, because I think we do have immense respect for one another. We are different. We are very different, but I think we know what each of us brings to the table, what we do, how we shape this. And it fits, doesn't it? So, Sprinkle, I wanted to come back to you on that front because I think this is rare. This lack of angst, this complete comfort that we have. And I can say that with confidence because we're on the second series and we are, immensely relaxed about it all. And even when, there's little hitches behind the scenes, we pull it out of the bag anyway and we get on with it. And that, I think, is rare. So again, how can somebody listening who may want to work with somebody who they're having perhaps difficulties with, or maybe, there's a little tug for leadership or whatever, how do we overcome that in order to move a project forward? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. You're spot on with that. It can be a hassle. One thing I would love to share to anybody who's listening, wants to start a podcast, looking at it, is it can get very tempting to want to collaborate with people who you believe will bring more visibility, a popular figure. But it's very important to consider genuine connection. People you can actually tolerate, accommodate, and support. Because it can be very necessary to be out there. It's a podcast. You want people to hear it. You want a lot of people to get connected with it. And you want that visibility. I get it. Everybody needs it. It's nice to have. But when the connection is genuine, it's authentic, and you can respect each other's opinions, it becomes an easier work environment. It's easier to flow. In fact, you wouldn't be struggling with who takes the lead and when or how, because it's a natural thing. Someone can come up with ideas. It's like how one person is pro admin and the other person is pro media and entertainment or creative and the other person is pro, say, marketing. We can all pull our strengths individually, take the lead on those fronts and make it the best that it can possibly be. And that's why even with the Real Talk Hub, for example, I've done just two spaces with Koi for another NFT project in the past, and we were both starting out. So why didn't I just go for, and I had other people, right, that could have easily helped me out with the spaces, but because we were both starting out and still it was easy for us to work together. It wasn't too pro, it was fun, it was welcoming, and we made it clear to everybody who cared to listen that this was our first shot. So working together on Real Talk just made it very easy. Nobody's feeling intimidated by the other person's progress or growth in the group. A lot of podcasts, two, three people, one person usually gets maybe more famous, more loved by the listeners, more support, anything. There's no jealousy, there's no envy. So working with people who you genuinely connect with, that's one of the biggest tips I would share to anybody who's looking to those. It helps so much with our leadership and the entire work process.
I love that, Sprinko. And I think, if there's a gold nugget coming out from this section of the discussion today, it would be if the vibe is wrong, you will be feeling that tug of discomfort. And if you're
Mm,
feeling that tug of discomfort, you're not working with the right people. And you make a
mm,
brilliant point because sometimes, somebody could ask us to do something, a big account, and oh, let's do a podcast or let's do a space or whatever. But you don't really know them. You don't really know if you're going to gel with them. You don't know if you've got
mm,
longevity, which will carry the project forward.
mm,
But we knew all of that kind of, didn't we? We didn't know
mm,
how it would work in terms of a podcast, but we did have that foundation, I think, that genuine connection. And you used the word tolerate and collaborate, and it's
mm.
super important, isn't it?
Yeah, very important because sometimes you work with people and you think your relationship outside of work is what's going to be at work. And when you start working with them, that's when you realize, oh, damn, I don't like working with her. I don't like working with him. They're
Mm,
so untidy and stuff like that. But when you genuinely connect, you'll be able to see that, oh, yes, that's just a natural flaw. It has nothing to do with how serious they're working with you or how dedicated they want to be. So you can tolerate them, you can support their change, their growth, and it just becomes so much easier to work. And I think that's one of the things that's been really helpful. Where one of us is lacking, somebody else is picking up and say, "Oh, don't worry, I'll handle that. I'll figure it out. Oh, I'll handle it. I'll support it." So this makes it so much easier. I'm so grateful to be working with you both. It's been absolutely lovely.
yeah, indeed.
Likewise.
Me too.
And
Yeah,
if I can
100%.
add one thing,
Yeah, go on.
I think before we actually start recording, we always have a little prep. And before the prep, it's very normal for us to just ask how everyone is doing, what they are
Mm-hmm.
doing. It's quite regular that we have a little laugh about something or about new news from AI to art or whatever we see. And we have also discussed some private things that will never be in the podcast, but just about
Mm-hmm.
our regular lives and how it goes and what we do would do, what the other one would do. I think that actually benefits how we are during our working together part for the podcast because we know how the other one is feeling, what the other one likes, and that actually enables a much smoother work flow. And then if we didn't do that, I think it's a little bit of a small talk. We talked about small talk in the previous episodes, but even for recording together and working together, having genuine conversations is also a sort of a podcast because we talk about things. And with
Mm-hmm.
podcast, okay, we are more direct for a topic. But besides that, it's also very easy for all three of us to have a conversation together. And I think that also helps.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's yes, it's kind of like a bonding exercise, but it's just something that's emerged naturally between us. And we've even talked about having the builders in prior to recording a podcast, haven't we? So yeah, it makes us human to one another, isn't it? And it increases our ability to chat because we know each other better. So that is super important. And thank you for sharing that, Pim. So let's look at the nitty-gritty now of getting it off the ground. So coming back to you, Pim, you handle the editing side of things. So what surprised you most about what it actually takes to do that in terms of time or expertise, whatever it is you have to do to be up to speed to do that for the project?
Well, before deciding which program to use and how to use it, um, it's a yeah, you learn by doing. I think that's the best thing. And now it's also quite funny that with it, let's say when I see the audio file, I recognize whose voice is who, but just the audio waves. So with that, I know, for example, I need to cut out a lot of my ums and my little breaths. Spranko has a little bit more of the extra silence between what he says, so he speaks more calm, and that's also what you can see during the audios. And for you, Caroline, you are the most balanced one when you're looking at the audio. Me and Spranko have more like you're more like mountain climbers with highs and lows, and you are more balanced where you fit in the structures. I think those things are quite fun because now I recognize who is talking without having sound on. But you have to make time. After a couple times of editing, you know how much time it takes, and then you just plan during your week or during your day, or what if you have extra time. Okay, now I'm gonna do the audio. Now I'm gonna do the editing, and then I can send it into the drives, and then if it's ready for everyone to use. Um, yeah, again, just do it and see how long it takes. Write it down when needed, and plan it in your planner, and then everything will come all right. The only thing is that we always have to figure out is like, how do you do the content and how do you spread it? I think that's an always ongoing process, discussing together and see what works best. But besides that, the editing and running the podcast, I think you, Caroline, you always send our meeting invites for the podcast. I do the recording, and it's a standard day. So we decided, okay, this day for us is Wednesday is the easiest day for all three of us to record. And then you just start doing it, and then it becomes your part of your weekly flow, besides work or your other projects. I think that's after a week of two, I think everything felt really normal to do.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to you, isn't it? Because there is a job of work that goes on behind the scenes, and we are all super active in that sense. And I think I just wanted to share with everybody that we record in advance. So I think, Sprenko, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it after when did we recorded 10 and then started putting them out? Is that
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yes, yes. So yeah, so behind the scenes, we are already thinking about what's coming when we're recording. So it's difficult, isn't it? But you're juggling all of that and editing and content creation and all of the rest of it. So there is work involved. So same question to you, Sprenko, really. You handle the uploading to Spotify and Apple and that side of things, and you're managing Instagram and you do X primarily as well. What surprised you most about what it actually takes, your part in it to launch the podcast and to keep it going?
Yeah, I would say is, that concept of teamwork. If I don't do my part, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, the podcast suffers. It's not about, oh, who's coming to clean up the mess. It's just I know I have to be on point. I have to show up. I have to do what I'm supposed to do. And even if I don't know how to do it, there's time to learn. So one thing is a lot of people want to figure everything out from the jump. They want to have all the ideas, all the solutions, everything. It's okay to learn on the job. A lot of us are just navigating through life on the go, right? So it's okay if you don't know how to look it up. There's ChatGPT, there's Google, there's other search engines. There's so much to learn online. There's YouTube. So if you are struggling with any of those things, and a lot of the things now are self-help. You can really just push a few buttons and it works. So, and you both were very supportive as to what platforms we should use, when we should. So it just makes things easier. But I know that I have to play my part so that every other part keeps moving.
Yeah, that's great advice, Brenko. Thank you. So I think what we're sharing here is that if listeners are sitting on the idea of a podcast and keep putting it off, the advice we would give is don't wait for the perfect conditions because they simply don't exist. Start
Hmm.
messy if you need to, start with your phone if you need to. The only thing that really matters is consistency and honesty, showing up with your voice, your perspective, and your willingness to grow along the way. So, to both of you, Pim first, what one piece of advice you'd give to somebody starting their own podcast right now?
Have fun, because then even if the podcast doesn't work, you had fun, which also makes it a lot easier to keep recording and keep searching out the topics. Find people you like to talk with. Well, in our case, I love to talk with the both of you, so that's also very easy on my side. And make a plan, making a plan and giving some structure to everyone you're working with so that everybody knows what to do and what to expect, helps a lot. We do the, let's say, pre-work documents where the topics is explained and some of the questions are written out, and then we improvise and talk along the way. But there's always a little bit of a structure during the episodes. Also, because we have a leader every episode. And again, yeah, just have some fun. It makes it a lot easier. Even let's say the podcast after a year or two didn't work out. I still had fun. I had great conversations. So it will not be a waste of time. So that helps.
Fabulous bit of closing advice, Pim, as we come to the end of this episode. And Sprinkle, what helped you stay motivated and keep showing up every week?
The shared purpose, the shared vision. I want to impact lives as many as possible every chance I get. This podcast, the Beyond Borders podcast, is another opportunity for me to do that. It keeps me motivated. It helps me know that I have people in my life, both of you, who have that shared purpose, have that shared vision. And if I just have to show up, play my little part to make that vision, that purpose be fulfilled, I would do it. That's what's been really helpful. And then you both make it easy to work. So we do it anyway. And I'm glad that we have people who lives are getting impacted by listening to the Borders podcast.
Thank you for that, Spranko. So, anyone listening, how do you know it's the right time? Honestly, you don't. You just decide it's time. And once you do, momentum builds from there. We didn't start Beyond Borders because we had everything figured out. We started it because we didn't, maybe. And we knew that something powerful could happen if we figured it out together. And that's what we did. So if you're sitting with an idea for a podcast right now, maybe this is your nudge. Just start. You don't need to cross the whole bridge today, just the next step. So thank you for listening. This has been Beyond Borders with myself, Carolyn, Pim, and Sprenko. Follow us across social media. We are everywhere. We're happy to chat always and hope that you will join us again. Bye for now.